And I went and cleared out her medicine cabinet yesterday. She was on 13 pharmaceutical drugs until a little while ago, and then I asked her if she'd be okay to take some cannabis medicines, and she was pretty a little bit surprised but open-minded about the whole thing. And I had the great joy yesterday of cleaning out her medicine cabinet and finding these incredibly massive stacks of oxycodone and Panadeine forts, and boxes high, and that constituted the months since she started using cannabis medicines of all the prescriptions that she goes and fills at the doctors all the time to keep up the appearance, but hasn't needed to use anymore because she's been on some CBD and some THCA. And for the last 3 months, when I call her up, she would say things like, "I'm getting better and I'm feeling this," or "I'm aware of that." And this is after 15 years of calling her up, and there was always something wrong. There's just always something wrong, and she did live a torturous inner life and had a lot of undealt with issues, as many people do. And so having the joy of hearing that from my grandmother was a very special thing. And then yesterday when I saw her stacked medicine cabinet of these things, and there's enough there to kill several families of people, really. I was so grateful and happy for that event, that I could see her have this time. And so when I get told that, and the very real fears that people have, that they've been told that these cannabis medicines are dangerous and so forth, one of these boxes of these things that were full of paracetamol and codeine and basically morphine derivatives, one of these boxes would be enough to kill your liver and possibly kill you if you ate one of the Valiums that she had there, or 5 of the Valiums, plus all of the oxycodone. And you mix benzodiazepines with opiates. And I was a drug addict for a long time, and I know a lot of people that have died, and most of them died trying to come down off the legal drugs, using other legal drugs. That was just my experience, that I saw. And so I just won't have it that cannabis is so dangerous that we need to, one, regulate it like other drugs, or be so in fear of it and give it so much attention when we hand these things out like they're lollipops to old people. We routinely kill people in the hospital. My nana died of the legal drugs that were given to her. I'm not angry about that at all. The doctor tried to do the very best thing that they could on Friday afternoon when she suffered a massive stroke. It was because she had a blood clot in her lungs, and they gave her a blood thinner, which then caused the clot to travel to her brain, and she had a massive stroke. Now, I'm not angry of that, because my grandma got what she wanted. She'd started to talk of leaving. She said she wanted to die fast, that she didn't want to be in a nursing home, she didn't want to die alone. And she died after speaking to all of her daughters, and she died fast, and there was a doctor holding her hand. And that beautiful doctor came out and said, "I'm sorry that this is what's had to happen, but this is what we had on hand." And so, for me, the issue isn't the doctors. Personally, I'm holding, the many years of prohibition accountable for the current state of play. And I know so many doctors and oncologists that refer people to us all the time, who are very loving individuals who just want to help. And so I wanted to thank all of those people and hope for a brighter future where the police are the protectors of the community, not the protectors of big pharmaceutical profit. And the doctors are given the licence to prescribe as they see fit in accordance with their Hippocratic oath. And that I, as a son and a father and a brother, get to help my family and have them help each other and have them help their community as they see fit, in a way that doesn't harm each other and is best in accordance with our heart's needs. So that's what I hope for, and I think we're sort of getting there. I've been blessed to, over the last 3.5 years, be part of helping many thousands of people now, and I see a lot of people stepping forward to either support that or to do it themselves. A growing army of people, this kind of love brigade of people out there, and so many people who I wouldn't expect to be aware of this stuff or come forward in support or call us up. You know, we have doctors, lawyers, politicians, we have police, we have all sorts of people come forward to ask medicine of us, people quite high up in the health departments, you know, and what I ask of them is to, you know, yes, you're doing your job, but we don't need to, I think we've got to step past the I'm just doing my job thing and start doing the thing that's best by us and best by the people that we know, and we know what that is, and so the more that we can support each other to do that, the better, I think. So, you know, in this time where legal isn't legal right now, and the police aren't exactly the protectors of their community, let's just keep encouraging each other and stay as positive we can that this will happen in our time, and that things have already changed so much that I've been allowed to do this and I haven't been sent to jail. You know, I know a lot of people that have been charged. I know a lot of families whose kids have been taken away, and my heart goes out to them. But I also want to speak to the discretion that has been taken. You know, I've been arrested at the border with a lot of cannabis medicines on me. I've been interviewed by the federal police a lot, and I've seen some of those police exercise discretionary measures, and my heart goes out with a lot of love to them and a lot of gratitude for those people that are standing up and, you know, saying to me and other people, look, if we were sick, we'd do it too. So, and I just wanted to go to the opposite end of the spectrum here and just talk about a little 3-year-old boy that was one of our many hundreds of cancer patients, and this little fellow came along with retinal blastomas, which is recurrent tumours behind his eyes, and life expectancy is around 3 years of age, you know, if they're contracted within the first 2 years of life. And this little fella, his mother, you know, went to the oncologist who at the time was you know, very sure that they needed to implement a regimen of chemotherapy, which was done. And then they did some media stuff around this child, hoping to raise some funds, and we contacted them and said, look, we'd like to assist in whatever way we can. You know, there's some alternatives or some co-treatments that you can take with chemotherapy. You know, we have CBD that has low THC, we have THC, you know, whatever you're most comfortable with, we'd like to support, but we know that you can take cannabis medicines with chemotherapy, and we know that it does mitigate the side effects, and that's what I can guarantee. You can't guarantee you anything outside of that. They left it for another 6 months and kept up with the chemotherapy treatments, and after that 6 months, when the tumours were getting worse, and the oncologist had said, I'm really sorry, but we're going to have to stop the chemotherapy because your child will die from this and is going to die anyway, but, you know, look after your child as best you can until then. And so they got back in contact with us, and we started giving that little one CBD, and the tumours stopped growing. And then the parents were heartened by that experience and went back to the oncologist and said, look, this is what's happening. The oncologist did more scans and tests and said, well, this is, you know, remarkable, whatever you're doing, keep it up. So they came home and contacted us and said, well, what do you think about THC? You know, it's scary for parents. It really is the idea of giving your little one THC, and we're told all sorts of things, and, you know, there certainly is some issues associated with cannabis use, so I'm not an apologist entirely for it, but they can be mitigated and worked with to be very minimal comparative to some of the terrible side effects of some of the other medications people are on. So, you know, if we're going to give our kids cytotoxins, then surely we can give them cannabis. Anyway, we started giving this little one THC, and the tumours dried up completely, disappeared, and this child is well past 3 years of age and is alive and well, and that oncologist has said that they will come on record whenever we do our documentary that we're in the process of making. And so when I see an oncologist whose heart and mind has been changed and wants to come out in support of that, it's a very brave act, you know. And so I support that person to hopefully step forward when we do this. So, you know, across the spectrum of life, from my grandmother leaving to this little child being able to be here for longer, I can see the benefits of this medicine. And I think as time goes on and we're better educated in ourselves and we understand better the limits of its efficacy, and the various interactions and potential contraindications, which I haven't really seen any. You know, I've seen so many thousands, I don't know, somewhere between 5,000 and 10,000 people now that we've given it to. The worst sort of contraindications, as it were, that I've seen have been being too stoned, so having a psychologically induced trauma for a very short period of time, you know, and some of the health effects that I see from some of the other drugs last for a lifetime and can be deleterious at every level. So I think that we can safely say this is a pretty safe medicine. I just wanted to speak to the way that the legal rollout of medical cannabis is happening, or really isn't happening. There's 350 people in this country at the moment accessing legal cannabis. I'm so grateful to see all of you here today, and I heard that there was more people here yesterday. You know, for a little while there, it felt like this movement, the interest in it was waning a lot. Having sort of been there from years ago to seeing that it reached a bit of a furor of public interest and social media interest, to it kind of dying off when the so-called legal rollout happened, which just incidentally coincided the day that the legal implementation of cannabis in Australia was advertised. We were approached by the Therapeutic Goods Administration and threatened with some pretty punitive measures if we didn't stop doing what we did. And we managed to mediate a kind of a truce by closing down our web presences, and a lot of other people stepped forward to kind of fill the breach, and so we had to step back to a degree. But there was a truce there, and what that showed me is that, you know, these guys have got pretty big boots, and the fact they didn't crush us out is because they're actually aware of how much support there is out there for this. And so I encourage each person to do whatever they can in their lives and their communities to keep up with this. Contact your politicians. You know, it's, you know, sitting around and talking about this is beautiful, but in some ways it's kind of, you know, as revolutionary as a Che Guevara t-shirt. And so getting out there and talking to each other and getting to the people that need to be changed. You know, we can talk to people that we know and that we trust and love, and that's a beautiful thing, but getting out there to people that really need their minds changed. Politicians need to know that we still support this. People need to know that this isn't legal, or that this legal thing is just such a smokescreen for, well, I wish it was a smokescreen, but it's not. It's a whitewashing what's really going on. So I think so many people think that this is legal, and it's not. In effect, it isn't legal. If people can't get it, then that's not legal in my view. So let's keep up with that. Yeah, things like the ridiculous statements of, you know, Greg Hunt around the dangers of cannabis use whilst he's promoting the interests of big pharmaceuticals. You know, they're ridiculous on their own. I don't need to point that out, but I still think that it's up to us to keep moving forward with this, because there's still so much resistance to it at a large level. And, you know, big pharmaceutical their kind of influence is very real. If you look at what the Therapeutic Goods Administration is here to do, it's to bring pharmaceutical drugs to market. They don't have, you know, they've got a couple of people that really deal with herbs. They don't really know how to deal with this, and they're not doing it very well, so they need to be encouraged to do it better than they are, and that's up to people to let them know. I wanted to talk about some of the issues around, you know, whole plant medicine. There's a lot of talk of CBD and THC. I've had a lot to do with, you know, large amounts of both and in varying measures. I think that whole plant medicine in its traditional forms was a lot more balanced in the amounts of THC and CBD that were there. It was, you know, due to prohibition and that we started to farm and breed these incredibly high THC strains, you know, that are up to a quarter of the weight of bud is THC, and we've got less than 0.5% of CBD. And this, in my view, is what causes a lot of the sort of dissociative effects and can trigger mental health issues and so forth, is because we actually don't have the plant in its original form as it was. And I've seen now people with really severe mental health issues. I certainly experienced a bunch of them myself, various drug psychoses and, you know, long-term effects that I had from smoking, you know, ounces and ounces of pot a week with heaps of tobacco and taking all sorts of drugs. And when I discovered CBD and mixing it in the right amount, I found it was balancing for myself. I overcame years of panic attacks and anxiety. And so I just think that, you know, if we're going to talk about whole plant medicine, let's just recognise that at the moment super high THC strains aren't whole plant medicine really, and the super high CBD strains aren't real whole plant medicine really. But we can see, you know, I think with some certainty amongst the many people that we've helped, that you certainly need the presence of both as well. You can do one-to-one mixtures, and really high THC, lower CBD, and really high CBD, lower THC can be effective for different things, and it's okay, yeah, you're right. And at the moment, it's a bit of an individual thing, and so there's certainly some indications. I won't go into them today because I don't have a lot of time, and I didn't prepare until 5 minutes ago by writing a few things down. So at another time, we could maybe go into that more. But if we're gonna, when I hear someone just being an advocate of THC or just being an advocate of CBD, I think, well, you're not a whole plant advocate. And if you take that one step further, what you're talking about, these are isolates of CBD or THC and compounds. Isolates of CBD are pretty dangerous and can be destructive, and I think can be so incredibly dissociative and harming on a person. I've used them myself. I've personally used them on myself in large amounts to see what could happen. I've used 500 milligrams of CBD isolate on myself. I had the first histamine reaction I've ever had in my life, and then it was really unpleasant. A few days later, I took 10 mils of 20% CBD, so thousands of milligrams of CBD in whole plant, and I had a really great sleep, and that was all that happened. And so I think our bodies really know what to do with a whole plant compound or a more complex compound like we've co-evolved with, but I don't think we have any idea what to do with isolates and compounds. We just don't. And so if we're going to use these new pharmaceutical drugs coming out, it's going to be a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy of the kind of prohibition era that cannabis medicines are dangerous, because they could bloody well be. I think we're going to get problems. We already know that they're less efficacious, that's just for certain, but I think they could end up being dangerous. And so advocating for whole plant and understanding that that's a balance of not only THC and CBD, but so many other phytochemical compounds and cannabinoids. I think we just need to be aware of that and keep on this thing that the drugs that are going to come out through the pharmaceutical system are totally bastardised versions of something that's otherwise very safe and could be dangerous, but they are not whole plant medicines and aren't, in my view, useful or healthy for us to be spending any time on. Most of the studies that are out there that have been done have all been done on isolates or compounds, so the studies aren't indicative of the real health benefits and potential good outcomes of cannabis medicines. So it's more the information coming out anecdotally that I'm trusting and what I see in front of my face than what I'm being told at a study level. Okay, I'll finish up soon. I had the wonderful experience of having Dr. Hergenrather come and stay with me after the last UIC symposium for a week, and he's been a prescribing cannabis doctor in California legally for over 20 years. There's still a lot of problems endemic to the system over there at a federal level, but some of the things that he did share with me really clearly at this is that if you use a medicine that is grown outdoors that has a balance of THC and CBD, that you get much better overall indications. We see in petri dish that THC and CBD does have apoptotic effects, but when we mix them together, that's heightened. That's just the case. I've seen many hundreds of people die in the process of using cannabis medicines. Often came to us in very late stages of their illness, and as a last resort and as a palliative measure, I totally support the use of cannabis medicines, because legalised euthanasia happens all the time with opiate medicines, and often if we use cannabis medicines, I think in the right amounts, we can be a lot more present for our own passing and that of our loved ones, and that's the kind of passing that I would like to have for myself. And so I've seen so many people die, but I've also seen dozens of people have these incredible recoveries, just absolutely amazing, incredible recoveries. Is cannabis a cure-all for everyone? I don't think it is. Is it a cure-all for some people? Absolutely. Is that enough people that we should make this legally available? Definitely. Do we need to change other aspects of our lives, psychological aspects of our lives, our emotional being, our spiritual aspect, our physical well-being? And sure, that is absolutely the best way that we're going to get holistic health outcomes, is to be holistic in our approach to those health outcomes. and to not come in and keep eating the shit we're eating and thinking the crap we're thinking and filling our minds and our bodies with all of these things that overwhelm us, and expect that we can then take some cannabis oil and we're just going to be fine. Often it can lead us to a state of knowing that it could be fine, and therefore we make the changes that are necessary in order to actually really embody that and realise that in our lives. But we need to take this as part of a whole approach to being more well in our lives. Stone kids, paediatric sensitivities, I think that was crossed off before by Dr. Deb. You know, I get kids coming in bleeding out their fucking ears from the stuff they're on, whose eyes aren't looking in the same direction as each other. And then we give them some cannabis oil and they're stoned, but they're smiling, they're playing, they're not bleeding out their ears, they're eating. So if that kid's a little bit stoned, then I'm alright with that, personally. As a father to a beautiful little boy, if my little boy was dying, if he can be more happy, then I will do anything to make that happen. And I just wanted to finish off on the safety profile that I see with the drugs that we've got at the moment for things like, I just want to advocate for other whole plants, you know, basically. So I personally work a lot with things like ayahuasca, and that's really helped me to be a more whole person than I was. I was a pretty, I think, destructive younger man. I took thousands of drugs in all sorts of ways and nearly died plenty of times, and I was really unwell and a total mess, and I shared that around with other people, my unwellness, and you know, and I'm glad that led me to, you know, being myself and finding myself. But it was with the love of my community, my family, my friends, and with the benefit of whole plant medicines that put me back in touch with myself in a way that I was looking for with these other drugs but hadn't managed to find, that I managed to reach a place where I can feel myself, be myself, allow myself to be in states of joy and trauma without trying to control it or change it all the time, and then to help other people, you know, and to serve other people in my community with these experiences, which is the destination of trauma resolution, is then to help other people. So, you know, when I get people come to me with methadone problems now, you know, these guys that are, you know, if you try and withdraw off methadone, I really wish you good luck. It's 2 to 8 months of fucking hell. And if you try and withdraw off heroin, it's 10 days to 2 weeks of hell. But then we're going to put these people on methadone so they can never get off it. So what, they're never going to go out and score heroin again, but let's drill them with this other stuff that causes osteoporosis, that causes, you know, this kind of zombified state. You know, I'm not advocating for heroin by any means, but I'm not advocating for making the problem fucking 50 times worse by giving methadone, you know, when we've got available stuff like kratom that is a whole plant that works on the opiate receptors, that when people can come to me off a gram of heroin a day, withdraw without any significant side effects with some kratom, some CBD and some THC. Give me the worst heroin addict in 2 weeks and I'll show you someone that's, you know, come off with that without significant discomfort a little while later. You know, kratom was made illegal by the TGA after a doctor-led study paid for by GlaxoSmithKline and Johnson & Johnson, who own 50% of the Australian opiate market that runs 50 to 80% of the world's legal opiate use every day. And these companies paid for a doctor-led study that constituted 8 doctors sitting in a room for half a day and coming out and saying kratom should be illegal because it could be habit-forming. I mean, what can't be fucking habit-forming? So, like, you know, and that was made illegal. It's Schedule 9. So, you know, and you've got, kratom is very easy to come on and off. I've done it to myself, as I have with, I did the 60 grams in 90 days of pure THC, and then I did it with CBD, and I've done this kratom thing and come on and off it just to prove that you can, that it's relatively easy, that these addictive indexes are somewhere below 3, whereas a lot of the pharma drugs are often above 8 on a scale of 1 to 10. So I just want to say there's an enormous amount of benefit out there in the plant world, and we can benefit a lot by being open to that and by stepping fearlessly out into the places that we've been told not to go because there's boogie monsters there. Do we need to do any question time? Okay. If there's anyone that's got any questions, then feel free to ask, and if not.
You talk about the whole plant, and I know a lot of cannabis is grown in unnatural lighting, hydroponics. Does that make a difference?
It's a really good question, actually. You know, we tend to think that a lot of the bad effects of weed are to do with hydroponics themselves. It's true and not true. You know, putting a plant under lights for 24 hours a day is going to stress that plant out at an energetic level. Put a human under lights for 24 hours a day and you'll get some pretty bad effects come out pretty quickly. So, you know, I believe in plant consciousness, and so I think those plants are much more stressed out and therefore express different profiles at a chemical level. But is it actually hydroponics that are doing it? I think that it's more so that the strains that we've bred that then have high THC don't revert naturally back to having more of a balance unless we grow them outside. So we're able to keep these kind of much more controlled environments and control the cannabinoid profiles more by taking cuttings. Because if we're seeding plants, the plants start to intermix. They start to, when you hybridise plants, they have a mixture of the genetics of all the things that have come before it, and they start to have phenotype reversion. There's all sorts of phenotypes that show out in, you get 50 seeds off a cannabis plant that's grown naturally, and you'll get all these different types of expressions come out, different leaf structures, different smells, different tastes. If you do that inside, you don't, because you're taking cuttings and you're getting a direct expression of whatever that mother was. Can hydroponics be done well? Absolutely, I'm sure it can be. Is it the best way to do it? I really don't think so. Is it necessary at this moment for some people to do that in order to not get arrested and so forth and be able to do it in a city setting? Well, it kind of is. But once again, most of the problems associated with all of this space are to do with its prohibition. You know, that's it. To me, it's as evident as the nose on my face. It's these things, you know, if we prohibit and misinform and persecute, and, you know, there's all this stoned, paranoid hippies. Well, fuck yeah, we might be stoned, but we've got a shitload to be paranoid about. There are people out there watching us. There are people that are going to cover you know, taken hostage, held for ransom, taken away from your families. Our community is destroyed, and it's not just amongst hippies at all. You know, I speak to everyone here, but a lot of these issues are very real. You know, I grew up on a commune. I was like 5 when, you know, the choppers landed and people I love started to be taken away, and all I want to see is the end to the drug war, because it's not a drug war, it's a war on people, it's a war on plants. This is the Third World War. You tell me any other war where every country in the world has been engaged in it. It's a civil war. It's a war where countries, where the government forces that are, you know, dictated to by very powerful, very old institutions go around the world persecuting people and plants. And this is the Third World War. We haven't had a war that encompasses every country. Every country in this world is persecuting this drug war at some point and at some place. Have a look at it. Just go out there and see the signatories to the UN Conventions on Psychotropic Substances, which our government holds so fucking dear that, you know, we need to observe these UN conventions to the letter of the law, otherwise Australia will lose its international respect and standing. Well, have a look at our UN conventions on humanitarian rights. Are we upkeeping those? Do we give a fuck what the international community thinks of our treatment of each other, of refugees, of our cannabis users, of our most sick, of our most needy? So it's not, in my view, about upholding UN conventions to the best of their ability. It's upholding the status quo, follow the money, that's where the business is and that's where the power is. Okay, cool.
Luke's going to be around for a while. We need to have a break, and he will be around. I just want to add something. So no one's talked about nutrition this weekend, and usually we do have that. So, you know, when you talk about whole plant, which I completely agree with, I think food is the same. For me, it's that simple. I've tried every food thing. It is about eating whole food. If you can afford organic, I think it's critical. We're going to wake up, it's stupid. The fertilisers, the chemicals we got everywhere. Organic's great, but the rest is whole food. Dodge processed food. Sugar, top of the chain, fully processed. they did some trial of kids in New Guinea who eat sugarcane all the time, never got tooth decay. Because if you chew the sugarcane, it's got an enzyme in it. So we're just dumb. We just think we know better all the time, don't we? So I've got to thank Luke Heaps for coming. You made me cry.
And on a,
You're always making me cry.
just to finish on a positive note, just, love yourselves, your children, your family, your friends, your community, be loved by them, be open to all of that, and there's really good things in store. There's good things happen all the time, every day. And so, lots of love to you all for being here. Thank you so much for graciously holding space for me to be as emotional as I am. I really appreciate it. Love to you all.